Hi, I'm Meredith Jones, and this is the Beauty Chronicles. Today, Carla and I are going to talk about handbags, how to hold them, what's in them, and why they're important. So, are you going to talk about handbags in Vegas? Were you on the lookout
Actually,
for
I
handbags in
didn't.
Vegas?
Okay. Fucking hell. Have you been there?
No, I want to go.
Oh, I don't know
You,
that you're going to
you
like it
did tell me
much.
it was a dystopian hellish nightmare.
Yeah, it's a dystopian hellscape.
Right.
It's honestly, I don't know. I was jet lagged and on a lot of coffee to compensate. Um, you're kind of in this hermetically sealed environment anyway, which is very, when you're not in the casino, when you're not in the common areas, is very empty and feels quite liminal in a spooky sort of way. Because the hotels are huge, endless corridors of identical doors, evenly spaced, kind of receding into the distance. The sound is a bit muffled, but there is nevertheless a kind of weird hum. I was there 5 or 6 days and probably saw people in the corridors 3 times. So that's weird. But then on the ground floor, which is known not as the ground level, but the casino level, it's like overstimulation. Like it's just music piped. The decor is kind of garish. And the casino is just this sort of like you arrive at the hotel, you check in. To get to the elevator to go to your room, you have to walk through the casino. Across the road from our hotel was this hotel that had a kind of Parisian sort of palace building in the front, replica, with the Eiffel Tower coming out of it, replica. This kind of mashup of Paris.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is travels in hyperreality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really is exactly what Echo was writing about.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
kind of replica that's based on an original, but which becomes more real and, in
Yeah.
fact, more fulfilling than the reality. But really, they're just trying to suck as much money out of you as they can. And the way they've reproduced it all is it's not at all classy. And so it's quite depressing.
Weirdly, you're selling it to me. Like I actually
It's
really want
worth,
to go.
it's absolutely worth visiting.
There's a famous Instagrammer and YouTuber and tweeter called MJ Corey, whose whole work is around the Kardashians. Her
Okay.
her product is called Kardashian Colloquium spelt with a K, of course.
Of course, spelled with the
Of
K.
course, spelt with a K, I know. And she did a little project a few years ago with her sister, and it was called "What City Are the Kardashians?"
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah. I mean, that's
overwhelmingly Vegas.
so that was Vegas, and because of that, I didn't really notice the handbags.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, all my colleagues had backpacks rather than handbags,
Yes.
which
And that's
is my
that's a
handbag of
crucial.
choice.
I was guessing that.
Yeah, like
Um,
I'm actually really into bags.
yeah, I know
Like I
you are.
have,
You love
yeah,
a
like
container.
yeah, like I have all my life been
Yeah,
really into
you love
bags.
a good pencil case. You love a good container
Oh,
to keep your bits and bobs
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
really noticed that about you.
And I really like, I've always been into bags, but kind of utilitarian bags.
Mm.
And I'll
Yeah.
spend hours. Like if I have to buy a new bag for some reason, I will spend hours looking at different options, and
Mm.
I'll spend way more money than I need to if I find something that's like, oh, that's a cool looking
Yeah.
bag
But
that
you
does a lot of,
don't
yeah.
use handbags per se. So maybe we should start with what a handbag is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So there's lots of different sorts of bags, as we know. But what a handbag is not, it's not a shoulder bag, it's not a crossbody bag, it's not a backpack. A handbag is a bag that can be held in one hand and often is, sometimes their straps, or sometimes they have a single strap, sometimes those straps are long enough to go over the shoulder. But as soon as they can cross your body, they're not a handbag anymore. Then they're a crossbody bag.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the other thing about a handbag is that most often they can stand alone. So they often even have little feet. You know, these are actually called little feet.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
handbags are often designed to be 3D, you know, so they can, you put them down and they can stay standing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike a lot of clothing, you know, which makes no sense unless it's on a body,
Mm.
handbags can actually stand alone and make sense in space. So often they have these little feet, they're 3D, they're quite engineered, they're quite structural, and they can be all sorts of sizes, of course, but crucially, they're mainly
So, yeah,
designed
so
to
the
be held
restaurants,
in one hand or with two hands, but not kind of actually more joined to the body like a backpack or a
mm-hmm,
crossbody bag.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why did you want to talk about handbags?
Well, you brought it up because you spoke about Miley Cyrus's little Gucci bag at the Grammys.
Yeah, how she had to hand it. She forgot
Well, she had this, and actually, there's an interesting history of handbags at the Grammys that I've written about.
Mm.
But so, so as you know, Miley Cyrus looked like an absolute goddess at the last
She did look
Grammy.
pretty good.
You said she was rocking a mob wife vibe. She looked most fabulously mob wife. I mean, talk about, uh, you know, a skinny little girl who's grown up into being really, she presented as a kind of golden, sparkling goddess at the Grammys. And part of that power, I think, that she performed there. I mean, there was a lot of power that night from her, the the choreography, the outfits, the lyrics of the song. I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours about things you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a clear message to her, I think, to her ex-husband, the charming Australian man, Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Um, but when she won the Grammy, the first Grammy, she got up on stage with a very famous handbag. It's a 1947 Gucci bamboo handbag. And these handbags have a certain handle that almost everyone would recognize because they've been replicated and copied so often. Very often, you know, almost every season there are handbags with these plastic handles that look like bamboo. They look like curved bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
It's become a handbag trope, I guess. But Gucci in the 40s worked out a way, probably stolen from some ancient craftspeople in a place where bamboo grows,
Mm.
you know, such as China. I don't know where they got the idea.
Just like spaghetti.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they
So
stole spaghetti.
yeah. So, well, I don't know if Gucci stole
No,
spaghetti.
no, those Italians I'm talking about. That mob.
Yeah. So Gucci, you know, supposedly worked out how to make curve a piece of bamboo,
Mm-hmm.
so it was permanently curved, and made these,
I mean, it
you know.
can't be that hard to work out how to
Well,
curve bamboo.
yeah, I don't think it.
It's pretty bendy.
Yeah, exactly. But to keep it bent, to
Okay,
set it, I
yeah, all
guess.
right, yeah.
And so the little handbag that Cyrus held at the Grammys was a genuine 1947 Gucci bamboo handled handbag. And she needed it because there was nowhere on her tiny little outfit for a pocket for her to keep her notes in
Her
for her
speech.
speech. So I thought it was quite gorgeous that she had to open this handbag, get the speech out of the handbag and read it.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was kind of a handbag moment at the Grammys, and there wasn't.
Do you think she owns that handbag, or do you think she borrowed it?
I don't know. What I do know is, although she could buy it for herself, like she could buy herself flowers,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Gucci provided it for her. It may have been out of their archive, or they may have given it to her, but I don't think she has to pay for much these days, even though she could buy herself a Gucci handbag. By the way, I looked up the cost of that handbag. Not that much in the scheme of things. What do you reckon it would cost?
Oh, I don't know. It depends how many they made and what condition it was in. 20 grand.
Yeah, no, less. So only 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
so maybe they made a lot. I
I
don't
think
know.
she could easily buy that.
Oh, she could buy 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Miley and her little power Gucci bag. But
So
I think
so you've written about this stuff before.
I have, yeah.
It's
And
long been an area of interest to you.
exactly. I love a good chat about a handbag. And the other famous moment with a handbag at the Grammys, oh no, it wasn't the Grammys, it was the American Music Awards, was Lizzo. You know, the pop princess Lizzo, who's also a flautist, has, incredible presence because she's a large woman. She's a large Black woman, actually. And she rocked up at the 2019 Music Awards with what was then quite a big fashion, so to speak, which is called the nano bag or the granular bag.
Oh.
And you can look it up and you'll see that the bag was about as big as two of her. She had quite big fingernails. So the bag's about the size of two of her fingernails.
And
The bag's
what do you
minute.
put in it?
Well, this was the question. So
a USB key.
Well,
lipstick.
No, it wouldn't fit lipstick. What it fits is a tablet for your night out, right? That's
yeah, for your drugs. Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
But the discourse around Lizzo the day after she was such a goddess at this music awards ceremony, there were two lots of questions. One was, what does she keep in that bag? And the other was basically, how dare she, a fat woman, she doesn't belong there. Who does she think she is? That sort of usual stuff. And Lizzo had a few good jokes in response, but I thought the best one was, about what do you keep in the little handbag? And she said, all the fucks I give.
I'm looking at pictures of it now. It's worth looking up online because her dress is pretty cool.
All the orange frills. Yeah, she's basically just wearing a whole lot of orange frills.
And the bag is clearly part of the outfit.
Yeah, of course.
Like it's kind of quite perfect, really.
That's right. And it holds all the fucks she gives about her haters. So just, that was an excellent, I thought it was Grammys, but, American Music Awards, similar. So yeah, there are handbags speak. Handbags have meaning, and there's kind of a whole literacy around handbags. So I did make a little list of the different kinds of handbags, some of the main kinds. There's the clutch, the tote, the bowling bag, the baguette, the doctor's bag, the pouch, and the slouch. So all of these,
What's the doctor's bag? Is that the one that stands up on its own?
Most of them, except for the slouch, will stand up on their own.
Oh, okay. Even the tote bag?
Well, no, not the tote. Actually, and the clutch probably has to lie down. But a doctor's bag, yes, definitely stands up on its own. And then there's even more specific bags that could be any of those styles that actually have their own names. And these bags are kind of almost celebrities in their own right, often named after celebrities. So there's the Hermes Birkin, named after Jane Birkin. There's the Chanel 2.55. There's the Louis Vuitton Speedy, the Balenciaga motorcycle, the Givenchy Antigona, and the Lady Dior. And the Lady Dior is named for Princess Diana, who I think at the time she wore it was still Lady Diana, but maybe not. So they're all certain styles, that are absolutely recognized and, that can cost, hundreds of thousands actually.
€5,400 for a
For what?
Dior.
For
Dior
Lady
Lady,
Dior?
yeah,
Lady
Lady
Dior.
Dior. A
Yeah,
Kleiner Lady Dior.
there you go. There you go. So they tell their own stories, and if for people with handbag literacy, as I like to call it, they mean a lot. Even when they're copies, even when they're knockoffs, you can have ironic handbags that, artists might have painted or drawn all over. There is definitely a language um, around handbags. And it's a uniquely, I would say, feminine and queer language.
Mm.
So it's one of these languages connected to fashion, part of fashion, that gives people who are weaker, who are other, who have less capital of all sorts in the world, it gives us a little bit extra, a little bit secret, a little
Right,
bit of
yeah.
something that is hidden from the patriarchy, to
So,
put it
okay.
bluntly.
So, yeah, okay.
Mm,
So if I was to rock a Lady Dior,
yeah.
what would I be saying?
You might be saying that you're a Princess Diana fan.
Yeah.
You might it totally depends. It could mean anything. It depends how you wear it and what you're doing with it. But the main message you'd be giving would be that you'd spent a lot of money on a very special bag, right? Perhaps that you value yourself greatly, the way Miley Cyrus is saying in her song.
You're worth
You know,
it.
you're worth it. I'm worth it. I'm going to buy it. That you've perhaps earned that money and chosen a way to spend it.
But
You
what
might
would, yeah, yeah.
also,
But what would like that specific bag, like versus a sort of, Hermes Birkin,
those
what
two
would I be
bags are,
saying?
well, those two bags are reasonably similar, but I guess the differences are that the Lady Dior is more conservative.
Hmm.
The Hermes Birkin, is was made for Jane Birkin, who was, famously bohemian, hippie. There's a bag of her. Sorry, there's a photo of her taken only a few years ago holding a really overflowing Birkin bag. She
Hmm.
can't even fit everything into it.
Hmm.
She was known for, still is known for being, not that fussy about what she was wearing. Of course, one of the great beauties of her time, but in a very different way to
Yeah.
Princess Diana.
So it's kind of, whatever I'm saying, it depends on the context, obviously, but
Yeah,
it
like
is
any.
linked. It's linked a lot to the OG
What's the OG?
event original. I
Oh,
think.
OG, OG. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
hope that's what it
yeah.
is.
It is. It is.
Um, yeah, whoever carried it
Yeah.
originally.
The other thing about handbags that they say in terms of money is they can often say, "My male partner bought me this."
Right.
And an extraordinary thing that I see a lot with couples who look like they're from Southeast Asia, so they might be Japanese, they might be Chinese, for example. I see them around London, is that sometimes if the woman, for example, say it's a hetero couple, right,
Mm.
and the woman needs both hands free to look through,
Oh, the
racks
clothes
of
rack.
clothing,
Yeah.
then the man will quite proudly carry this sometimes dainty little feminine blingy
Mm.
bag. And that's almost a status symbol for him because I guess the implication could be that he's bought the bag. So,
Well,
of course,
he's
we
there
don't know.
buying the clothes,
Well,
isn't he?
he
I mean,
might be. Who
why else
knows?
is he
I
there?
mean, maybe he's just her toy boy or her gigolo, and she's paying him, and we
True.
don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
We don't
Let's
know.
not make assumptions.
Exactly. All
Okay,
we
so
can
now
assume is
so
that
now
that's an expensive bag and it's important.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. now I understand why there's such a huge black market for bags and why you would be happy to pay a tiny fraction for a replica, because even that is saying something.
That's right.
Even if it's obviously a fake, you're still kind of saying something. It also reminds me, when I lived in Turkey, the markets there were a lot of, fake goods. You walk through a sort of a Turkish market, a bazaar, and you really do get harangued by the sellers for attention, and there's a lot of noise. But the ones in Izmir were the ones who sold handbags in Izmir were really, they were like, yeah, they're fake, but they're the best fakes you're going to see anywhere in the world.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to actually tell the difference between a good fake and the real. And there's a secondhand online market called Vestiaire Collective. One of the things that you pay a little bit extra for if you buy stuff from Vestiaire Collective is a kind of guarantee that what you're buying is not a fake. But I really think that a lot of I've seen handbags for sale in Bangkok that include certificates of authentication,
Yeah.
et cetera, and are made of, even the same endangered species. They're not even
Well, they're probably
vinyl.
just made at the same factory.
Well, they could be.
I mean, in Izmir,
They
there
could
was
be.
a kind of, I don't know what you call them. They're making a whole bunch of them in the UK now that the UK is out of Europe, but it's basically kind of a geographical area that becomes a zone that's kind of has its own tax rules and import export rules, and you can produce,
Oh, how
produce products
glorious.
there.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
so there was
God.
one of those in Izmir,
Okay.
which was kind of like Europe.
Mm,
And the people that worked there were sort of in a zone where they could get paid cheaply, but then goods could be exported from there to
yeah.
Europe without any customs or duties.
Mm.
And there were fashion companies making stuff there.
Since, we've been thinking about doing this podcast for a few weeks. And so what I've been doing sitting on the tube is trying to spot whether people's handbags are, real. I'm putting in inverted commas. Of course, they're real, they exist, but whether they're the branded real thing or a copy. And often the only way I can make any sort of reliable guess at that is by looking at the rest of the outfit. What else are they wearing? If their shoes are cheap and the rest of their outfit looks cheap and they haven't got like an expensive hairstyle, then I'm guessing the bag's fake. If the rest of their outfit looks really expensive, then I'm guessing the bag's real. But so what I'm saying is there's often no difference between the bags themselves.
Yeah.
So what else? Another really, really famous handbag is the one carried by Margaret Thatcher. Isn't it interesting that even Margaret Thatcher, we can almost begin to think of her with some fondness in hindsight, given our current world leaders. Yeah, sorry, not louder,
Yeah,
Launer.
I mean, only in
Launer.
comparison to our
Yeah,
current ones.
I know. She's still dreadful. So her bag was called a Launer,
NA.
Launer, yeah, I think. Now, if you look up early photos of Thatcher as a politician before she became Prime Minister and probably before she was a minister, she's usually carrying two bags. One is a briefcase and one is a handbag.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like a
Now,
conventional square briefcase.
yes, a
Yeah.
real 80s kind of briefcase.
Yeah.
So what she was doing, what she was sending with that message, I think, was I'm a man and I'm a woman.
Yeah, I'm here
I'm
to
in a
work.
man's world. Yeah, I'm here to work. So I have a briefcase. I'm in a man's world. But I've also got this handbag. I'm not going to let go of that.
Yeah, I'm still a woman.
Exactly. We would expect, wouldn't we, assume that when she became Prime Minister, she'd drop the handbag and keep the briefcase. No, it was the
No.
opposite because
Yes.
that was her power. Her
Well, and
power.
also it would have made her seem more, I don't know, there would have been something dubious about her having a briefcase back then.
Yeah, she would have.
In terms of gender.
Exactly, yeah.
It would have been problematic and a possible point of attack.
And in that way, her handbag actually was a form of armor.
Mm.
And it looks like that. It looks like a shield. It's very square. It's very blocky. It's actually the same handbag that the Queen carries,
Right.
which
Oh,
of
well, there
course
you
was
go. There you
very
go.
meaningful for Thatcher because she had these aspirations, to
It's,
be very upper class.
yeah, and it also kind of reminds people that if we can have a queen, surely we can have a female prime minister. Like she's using handbag literacy there.
Exactly. And she used it in a very sophisticated way, I think. Apparently, ministers used to use the verb handbagging
Mm-hmm.
when talking about the way she would run meetings. They'd
Mm.
come out of meetings. These are conservative ministers, her cabinet. They'd come out and say, I've just been handbagged. And what they meant was that they'd been verbally told off by Thatcher. And actually, the verb to handbag is now in the dictionary. I don't know if it began at that time. I think the definitely the verb came about, in that period and was probably
Yeah.
very much associated with her. There's another famous handbag moment where where the verb to handbag might have come from, and that's a photo of a Jewish woman hitting some neo-Nazis with her handbag. And I think there's even been a statue made of her in the town where that happened.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, to handbag is to attack in a very feminine way, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was in Sweden.
Sweden, right. But to handbag is also it's also to belittle, it's to say the attack that you've done is just handbagging, so it can be used in a very derogatory way. I've just been handbagged. Oh, here we go. So the photo was of Danuta Danielson, a Jewish woman,
Mm.
and it was taken in Sweden um, in, I don't know when. I have to look that up.
85.
85, there we go.
1985.
Yeah. So yeah, Thatcher era. Here's a quote from Germaine Greer, Carla, that you
Mm-hmm.
might identify with, maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let's see.
Why do women always carry bags? And why are those bags so often heavy? Why is it that most women will not go out of the house without bags loaded with objects of no immediate use? Is the tote bag an exterior uterus, the outward sign of the unmentionable burden?
I think for some reason when we were talking about what they symbolized, I was kind of in the back of my head was like, don't they somehow symbolize a woman's vagina or something?
Well, yes,
And it must be I've read something that Jermaine Greer wrote. I
absolutely.
I think
Yeah, she's
women go out with these bags because they don't have pockets in their clothes.
absolutely. Yeah, that
That's my feeling.
no, that's very true. But even when we have pockets, we'll still often choose to carry a handbag as well.
I mean, because they're
And
not
that's because of
practical
all of
pockets.
this symbology of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Greer
I mean,
goes on in that piece to talk about the handbag being an exterior uterus, but we can actually take it even a little further, as indeed dear old Sigmund Freud did.
mm,
So, in writing about Dora, one of his most famous patients, he writes about her reticule, which was her handbag.
mm-hmm,
Really, what he's describing is a handbag. Dora's reticule, which came apart at the top in the usual way, was nothing but a representation of the genitals. And her playing with it, her opening it and putting her finger in it, was an entirely unembarrassed yet unmistakable pantomimic announcement of what she would like to do with them, namely to masturbate. So Freud put this to Dora. She's sitting there fiddling with her
mm,
handbag.
mm, mm.
He puts it to her, and you know what she said? She said, why should I not wear a reticule like this, as it is now the fashion to do? So she puts him firmly in his place. And basically, when Freud said a cigar is just a cigar, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, well, Dora said,
Yeah.
sometimes, mate, a
A re-
handbag is just a handbag.
He's quite obsessed, wasn't he?
Oh God, yeah, everything was to do with the sexual drives. Yeah, but so absolutely, handbags are sexual as well. Um, they're often held in front of our groins, or
Mm-hmm.
at least very close to them.
Mm.
Um, they are containers. They are literally containers. So, and they often hold the things that are very dear to us. So they hold precious things.
Mm.
Um, so I think that symbolically they are very much a part of the anatomy, a part of the psyche. They can be read in that way.
Mm. And so what are some of the latest trends? Like, are there new types of classic handbags? Like, what's going on that front? Does Kim come out with her own handbag every year that in 50 years' time will be a classic? Who's making the
As
new
far as I
designs?
know, the Kardashians haven't uh, invented any handbags. I think I don't think there are that many new designs. I think what happens is old designs are brought out in new fabrics, in new materials, in new sizes. One classic, as we mentioned before, is the Hermes Birkin, right, which
Mm-hmm.
is quite a square looking, really classic bag that, anyone who sees a picture of it will recognize this bag. Now, I don't even need to say allegedly, because I'm sure this is well documented on at least one Kardashian program. Several of the Kardashians really, really adore these handbags in particular, but the one who has a big collection of them is Kylie, the youngest Kardashian.
Mm-hmm.
I believe she even has a room dedicated to these bags. Um, Now, one thing that Hermes did a few years ago was they brought out a jumbo sized one
Mm-hmm.
of these bags. It's the size of a small suitcase
Mm-hmm.
or even a medium sized suitcase, but um, it looks like a handbag. It's just an oversized, enormous handbag. Now, apparently, Kylie likes to keep some of her other Hermes bags inside that bag.
Okay. It's
Um,
getting meta.
It is getting meta. I've also seen an interview years ago with Nicole Richie, um, who often keeps one handbag in another. She said because she couldn't be bothered
Mm.
unpacking it, so she just pop one inside another,
Mm.
and just kind of layer upon layer of expense and meaning and
Who
handbag
carries
literacy.
who carries that? Must get heavy. I mean, I like it. I think it's a good move because I hate transferring stuff from one
Yeah. I think a
one
lot of
bag
these
into
people
another.
never have to really walk anywhere. They walk from house to car, house to chauffeured car, car to into somewhere. Uh, they don't carry bags in the way that you and I do. So their bags really are fashion statements sure, they might hold important things, but the weight of them doesn't matter the way it would do to you or me. I mean, I will walk around London for hours at a time and simply can't have a heavy bag.
Yeah,
It would
yeah,
cripple me.
yeah. But
Um,
they're probably not walking around London.
no, they're not. They're not walking around
They're,
anywhere
they're
except on their own treadmills in their private gyms.
right. Yeah.
And I doubt they carry their handbags on them, but you never know. And the thing about handbags is that they do hamper movement, right?
Mm.
So unlike a crossbody bag or a backpack, you lose a limb,
Mm.
right? You lose use of a limb with a handbag. It makes you lopsided,
Mm.
right? It is not ergonomically friendly at all. Um, so they are constrictive. They are one other way to cripple women and to stop women having freedom of movement in the world. So, for all of the symbolic freedoms that they might offer, they have these practical limitations and constraints. You simply cannot catch a ball, right? If you're holding a handbag, unless you can catch it with one hand, it's going to be more difficult for you to run, especially if you've got the full femininity performance going on with high heels as well. You know, these things stop us. They stop us being mobile in some ways. But then in other really important ways, they help us with mobility. Because one of the things a handbag does is it brings the private or the domestic into the public. It allows us to bring part of what we normally have in our home into the outside world with us.
To carry it with us into the outside world.
So in that way, they facilitate movement whilst also hampering movement. And indeed, the earliest versions of what we now call handbags, they've got a very classed history, right? So in the late 19th century, when cities like Paris and London were beginning to open up things called arcades and early versions of shopping centres and department stores, it suddenly, for the first time, became not just acceptable, but kind of laudable for middle and upper class women to be out in the world unaccompanied,
on their own,
unchaperoned, right? Now, the handbag in a way facilitated that. It allowed them to bring cash, to bring whatever it was they needed, and to be out in those new middle class / upper class public spaces in ways that were respectable.
Yeah, and kind of signified that they came from somewhere respectable.
Absolutely, and the handbag still does that.
They had a home.
Exactly. This was their little a portable life world or a portable micro world. And that's what the handbag can offer is this home that you bring with yourself. And of course the shadow, you know, the great black shadow over that is the figure of what we call the bag lady, who is the woman who is unhoused. You know, a colloquial name for her is bag lady. And that's because everything she has of value is in bags that she carries around with her or leaves on the street in a great pile. And it's so meaningful that becomes her label. She is known as a bag lady. So that's where, you know, it tips from being a symbol of security and home and potentially wealth into being all of the opposite once it gets too big and too baggy and too much and too full. Yeah, and too many of these bags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's making me think of Lizzo's tiny bag.
Ultimate power play with that little tiny bag. Yes. Bags do also make us bigger. So women are not allowed to take up space in the world. You know, we are taught to cross our legs. We're taught not to sit with our legs wide open. That's even known as man spreading, not woman spreading, right? We are taught to take smaller steps than men. And that, I don't mean taught, you know, sometimes it is actively taught, but the world teaches us correct comportment. You know, we are taught not to swing our arms about. We're taught not to have loud voices. We're taught to take up less space. And very often women are smaller than men. You know, that's just a biological fact. So, you know, we're taught to be even smaller than we already are. And one thing a handbag
in most cultures.
In most cultures, of course. I'm always talking about my own culture.
Yeah.
My own cultures, plural. But one thing a handbag does is that it's like a little bit of an exoskeleton. You know, it's a little bit extra in the space I can take up in the world. Yeah. So there's a lot of power in handbags. things to be lost by carrying a handbag, and possibly things to be gained. Yeah, I think they're both shackles and armor. I guess they're an armor that's kind of heavy,
Mm.
you know.
Mm. How many handbags do you have?
Well, none really. I've got
You had a backpack the last time I saw you.
yeah, I've got backpacks. I do have, when I got a role at a university that I really had coveted, I bought myself a reward, a tiny little Vivienne Westwood vegan handbag, orange,
Oh, nice.
but it has a strap, so it's a crossbody bag. It's a
Okay.
handbag and a crossbody bag, so I
I mean,
can
but
hold
that
it.
still says something, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. It says, it aligns me with, someone like Vivienne Westwood. It was like £209, I think, which is more money than I've ever basically spent on anything that I
Well,
wear.
that's a lot less than a Gucci. You've never spent more than £200 on something you wear. What about a warm jacket?
No, I buy most of my stuff from secondhand sites and op shops. So
Oh,
even if I'm
okay.
wearing like a Comme des Garçons jacket, it won't have cost that much.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. Yeah, I'm really stingy.
Mm, okay, yeah. I mean, when it comes to cold and warm jackets, I'm like,
Mm.
I will spend what is required,
Right.
only because I
Nice.
know the difference they make.
Yeah.
I'll spend a lot of money on a warm jacket. I'm trying to think of what else I spend, and I will spend a lot of money on a backpack,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of
You like
utility.
new stuff, don't you? You don't really buy
No, I
secondhand.
buy secondhand
Oh, you do?
stuff. In fact, I bought a jacket new. I bought a really nice, I call them Doona jackets, but a down jacket. Quite a nice one from a nice fashion, high-end hip It was good. It looked good. It was really expensive. And I liked it so much that I then bought one for Hilda in a different color
Ah,
and then
nice.
another one in the other color they had. Both of those were secondhand though, but both of them were more than 200
Right.
secondhand.
Right. Yeah, no, that must have been a pretty expensive thing. Yeah, so do you have any handbags?
Um, I don't at the moment. I kind of am trying to think. There was a period when I had what it was kind of a handbag, but you could also put a strap on it.
Mm.
And I bought it from like around Shoreditch from this place that made their own leather goods.
Yeah, right.
Um, but I just didn't end up using it because it was too heavy
Mm.
in the
Sometimes they
end.
can be really heavy.
And it didn't quite the shape it like it wasn't small. It was big enough probably to put a small laptop into and some other stuff, but I wouldn't have been able to put like a cardigan or a hoodie or something, like an extra layer of clothing in it. Just wasn't big enough.
Mm.
And it was heavy anyway, what it was made out of.
Yeah, often the handbags that we see on runways are empty. You can tell
Yeah,
by the way the models
they
can swing
swing
them.
them.
So
Yeah.
here's this huge handbag, clearly has nothing in it. But, that's a thing. You don't have to put anything in it, especially if you've got someone else to carry all your stuff.
Do you think Margaret Thatcher had stuff in it?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if I'd
Because
like to
like,
look up,
because those it didn't fit her files that she would have had in the briefcase.
unless she folded them up. Well, it would have had her makeup
Mm-hmm.
because she was always powdered and lipsticked, wasn't she?
Mm.
She wouldn't have had a phone back in those days.
Well,
Mm.
if she did have a phone, it wouldn't have fit.
The phone would have been bigger than the bag.
Yeah.
I know, brick phone. Yeah, but I think handbags can be quite magical. I know that Mary Poppins' bag wasn't a handbag, it was a carpet bag. So it was bigger. It was sort of like what we'd call an overnight bag. And
Mm.
she pulled all sorts of things out of that. She pulled a hat stand and um, a pot plant. Um, yeah, she pulled all sorts of things out of it: a wall mirror, a standing lamp.
It's like
These were all things to
it's like
make herself at home.
It's like
right?
a TARDIS in
It was
reverse.
a TARDIS. Yeah, it was like a TARDIS, bigger on the inside than the outside. Yeah.
I would like sort of physics to work out how to access smaller dimensions of space so that we could actually fold things into those dimensions and thereby disappear from the one we're in as a way of saving space.
In a way, that's what the mobile phone does, doesn't it? If you think, 20 years ago in a handbag, someone might have had a camera, a diary, and let's say a notebook.
A wallet with, like a purse with money.
Yeah. And also, if you were any sort of writer, you might have a recording device. So a journalist might have a recording device and a notebook.
Maybe a mini dictionary if you're
Exactly.
in a foreign country.
So now all of those things are in the phone. But interestingly, the phone still goes into a handbag. And that's because the handbag is such a powerful symbol of other things, things that simply that a phone can't yet replicate.
Phone does other stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's all very interesting, Meredith.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe next time we're together in Berlin or London or wherever, we should go handbag spotting.
Yeah. I think we'd probably need to go out to the Kudamm, West Berlin.
Okay.
Where there's probably more Russians.
Oh, yes. Well, lovely to talk to you as usual.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
All right. I've got to go. Richard's giving me the wind up.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that was good
Come
timing.
and say hello to Carla.
In the hotel room, the bar fridge is stacked. There's no space. There's very little space to put anything of your own. And if you even just touch, there's all sensors on every item. So if you even touch it or move it, you don't even have to consume it. They'll charge you for it.
You're kidding.
To give you an idea of what things cost, a bottle of water, which is kind of a litre bottle, is $24.
God, I would never open the fridge.
Yeah, I didn't. I opened it to take a photo to prove that I hadn't had anything in case
I'd be too scared
I was
to
charged.
open it.
Yeah, it's nuts.